Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show. On this episode, we're talking about all things cloud computing, and you really can't talk about cloud computing without talking about Rackspace Technology. Joining us is the CEO, Kevin Jones. Kevin, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Great to be here.
Well, I want to get into your company in a second, but on a personal note, tell us about you.
Well, sure. So, Jeff, I grew up on the East Coast. I was really into sports as a boy. Sports is actually how I got into college. I probably should have studied harder in high school. So sports got me into college. I played tennis at this school called James Madison University in Virginia. I knew from the first day of college tennis practice, I was not good enough to be a professional tennis player. So I started studying really hard. Right after I graduated, I joined the technology industry, where I've now been for over 30 years. I've worked for some of the biggest tech companies in the world: Hewlett-Packard, Dell, DXC Technology. Most of my career, I've been in the United States. I did spend 6 years in the UK and 2 years actually in Asia, running the Asia Pacific and Japan business for HP Services. Now, interesting story, Jeff. Right before I joined Rackspace Technology, I had a great experience as CEO of a company in a completely different industry. It was called MV Transportation, a 20,000 person company. And we were a Rackspace customer. And we had an amazing experience as a Rackspace customer. Rackspace did a great job for us. They moved us from our aging data centers all over the country into the cloud, hit all their deadlines, saved us a lot of money, and we were very thrilled with the service. So I was really quite excited when, I guess it's been 18 months or so ago, I was asked to join Rackspace as the CEO. It's been a blast, right? By far the best company I've ever been a part of. I wake up every day excited to get to work and work with the best technologists in the world.
And you just IPO'd. How exciting is that?
It was amazing. It was really, really exciting. And Jeff, it was a pretty interesting process, right? Because doing it in the middle of a pandemic was fascinating. We did all of the roadshow meetings, all of the testing the water meetings, all of that we did virtually, it was great, right? Because instead of traveling around the country, which you usually do with an IPO, right? We did it all virtually. We were able to do a lot of different meetings really, really fast, and we took the company public. The ringing the bell ceremony was different, right? Because we did that virtually as well. But actually, it was great because we invited thousands of people, all the Rackers, which is what we call our employees, their friends, their family, invited all of them to watch it virtually as we rang the bell at NASDAQ.
Well, tell us about your leadership style.
Well, sure, absolutely. So, when I think about leadership, one of the first things I think about that's important is speed. So I really love to go fast, right? This is really, really important to me. Jeff, I saw this quote many years ago that changed my life. And this quote was, if you had a 10-year strategic plan, why can't you get it done in 6 months? And to me, that is really quite inspiring. It's quite motivating. And if you just think about work, right, and how work gets done, actually most tasks and actions don't take that long, right? It's really, human nature causes work to get done in the elapsed time given, and people have too many priorities, right? So really, I thought about that concept, and also thought about the fact that focus is generally a problem. When I came to Rackspace, for example, we had 10 corporate priorities. I don't know about you, Jeff. I can't do 10 things at one time. So we basically decided to focus on only 3. And we stopped work as a company on everything else. We said we were going to be the best of these 3 things in the world. So we focused, we went fast, we set unreasonably short deadlines on most projects and programs. And the rest is history. Just over a year later, our customer satisfaction went up, our sales results and our pipeline went up, and we took the company public.
And I know culture is so important to you. Where does that come from? Is that have you been studying other great leaders?
Yeah, culture is really a very important part of businesses, right? And as I've kind of gone around to different businesses and transformed, helped companies transform, culture is one of these things that's very difficult to change. And if at all possible, what I try to do with a company's culture is really double down on it and reinforce it. And if we have to pivot it slightly, then that's okay. But it's very difficult to change a company's culture. Now, the great thing about Rackspace Technology is it had one of the best cultures in business today. So I actually doubled down on the culture at Rackspace because it's so fantastic. You just think about our company, there's really 3 things that signify Rackspace Technology's culture. One is fanatical customer experience, doing whatever it takes to make sure we meet customer objectives, making sure we go over and above the call of duty. The second thing that you think about when you think about Rackspace culture is the technical capability. Best technical architects and engineers I've ever seen. And we reinforce that with 52 hours of paid professional training every year per racker, right? Per person, helps us stay ahead of the innovation curve. And then finally, just having a great place to work, having fun, making sure we celebrate successes, and also having a culture that's grounded in inclusion and a powerful sense of community.
And you're in an industry that is just growing by leaps and bounds, and I have to imagine that even the pandemic has just created a greater urgency for more cloud solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. The pandemic has been a really fascinating development. And just a little bit about that, Jeff, I actually had some personal experience with pandemics. When I was in Asia 10 years ago, I actually contracted H1N1 during the H1N1 pandemic. It wasn't the most fun I'd ever had. It was, but I got over it in about a week. But what I did learn is how pandemics kind of move across geographies, across countries, and the effects of quarantining. So at Rackspace Technology, if you kind of fast forward 10 years later, by the way, Jeff, I never thought I'd use that knowledge. I thought it was just one of those things that happened. But you fast forward 10 years later, and when we saw the pandemic, moving across Asia, started in China and then moving across countries, my antenna was already up, right? So I met with the leadership team. We really decided, obviously the Racker health and safety, the health and safety of our employees was number 1 priority. So we started anticipating maybe we're going to have to go to work from home. So we started testing in January and February, like way ahead of the curve. By the time March 9th occurred, we flipped a switch. We sent our Rackers to work from home, and we didn't miss a beat. Our 120,000 customers saw a seamless transition to services.
Wow. And I know you're an athlete. Are there parallels between sports and running a business?
Look, I think so. If I just kind of think back to when I first started in sports, it was as a little boy. And but by the way, Jeff, growing up, I had no idea, that I would ever be a tech CEO, right? That wasn't on my radar screen. I didn't think that would be. But yes, growing up as a boy, I played a lot of sports. As I mentioned, I gravitated toward tennis. And to me, sports is very Pavlovian, right? I love it because you do something, you get a result, you do something, you get a result, right? Immediate feedback. And, what I found was the more I practiced, the better I performed in matches. If I practiced 1 hour a day on the tennis court, I noticed I would win a certain amount of matches. If I did 2 hours a day, et cetera, it was almost linear in terms of better result the more I practiced. Business is very similar. The other thing that sports teaches you, right, is it teaches you incredible discipline. It teaches you leadership and stamina. And probably the most important thing I learned from sports was resiliency. And, if you just think about, any athlete go through ups and downs. I lost some heartbreaking tennis matches growing up, was never as athletically gifted as a lot of people in the sport. So, but, no matter what happened, if I lost, I was practicing, back on the court that night, or certainly the next morning, working on what I did wrong. Business is very similar, right? If you just think about particularly the technology industry, it is hyper competitive, right? You're up against the most talented people in the world. And, you have to be resilient. If you lose a deal, you can't give up. You can't fold up shop, right? If something bad happens. And you also have to have thick skin, right? In business, you can't be too sensitive if somebody gives you feedback that you're not doing something very well. So the last thing I'll say about this subject, I'm obviously very passionate about the parallels, but as an athlete, it's about incremental improvement. And it's the same thing to me in business, right? In business, I have never in my experience seen an easy fix. There are no easy fixes, Jeff. In my experience, there's no wonder cure, and the cavalry is not coming, right? Cavalry is not coming. To me, being successful in business is all about getting 1% better every day. And if you can get you and your teams better 1% every day, then you can change the world.
I love that. Well, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to end with this question. I run a very small company. You run a very large company, a publicly traded company. There's got to be a lot of pressure on you, and yet you look so young and rested. How do you balance work and life?
Look, well, thank you for that. I think balance is really, really important. And, I definitely try to take breaks. I've got a great wife and 2 kids that keep me busy on the family home front. And then weekends, I try to take a lot of time during weekends and relax and read and do other things. I think it's important. I think if you do string too many hours in a row together or don't take vacations, I think it negatively impacts your productivity. So, my view, just kind of like going fast, if you can have balance, if you can take those breaks, and you can just be much, much more effective and you can go faster.
Well, Kevin, you have been an amazing guest, and congratulations on all your success. We're going to end by putting up your website. Rackspace.com is the website. Kevin Jones, the CEO. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.